Hello and welcome back to the Hester and Lark knitting podcast. This is episode 4. My name's Lily and I like to knit and then I like to try and talk to people about it. So thank you for being here. I hope you stick around, I hope you have a chat and let's get into it. I'm going to do the normal things, finished objects, works in progress, sort of plans / acquisitions, and then I have a little chat at the end about anything that I've watched, read, listened to. If anybody wants to join in for that, but you don't have to, it's at the end. You can skip if you so choose. So I have a finished object this week, which is very exciting. Oh my gosh, I went so hard on this. And I got like weirdly hyper focused about it, and I basically didn't do anything else, and I turned into a monogamous, that is a word, isn't it? I turned into a monogamous knitter. That is not normally who I am, and who knows, like it shows, doesn't it? Like if you actually just do one thing at a time, you can finish stuff. So I made an April cardigan. The pattern is by Petite knit. I knit the 3rd size, which I don't know if they're small, medium, extra, whatever, or 1, 2, 3, but it's the 3rd biggest size. I used West Yorkshire spinners, Wensleydale Fleece DK in the colour Peridot, held with some drops kid silk in the colour Pistachio, and it made, oh my gosh, chef's kiss, the most beautiful fabric. I am so happy with it. Like, I can't even tell you, like I knew I was gonna love it from the swatch that I did and from just like the yoke. I think I showed that the last episode, but honestly the wash and block has just turned it into like the most beautiful fabric. I've got it here. The Wensleydale is really drapey. It hasn't actually got very much stretch or bounce, which made it sometimes a bit of a hard knit on the hands, but it's got such a nice sheen, and it's just like mushed and melded so nicely with the mohair. Another kind of concern I had with the unblocked fabric was the any like tiny deviations in tension you really saw, but that's all blocked out. It all looks really even and nice. So here she is in all her glory. Oh, I should have done the buttons on. I put buttons on, which means she's actually finished, and I trimmed all the ends off, which is usually a struggle for me because that's commitment. Once there's no going back. So here she is. I will try and put a picture in of me wearing it because I'm aware that it's very hard to see, and oh my god, it's so warm. I put this on to take some pictures earlier and I was sweating. So this is not inside my flat in August kind of cardigan, even though it's kind of miserable outside, but it's not miserable enough to need 100% wool and mohair. But just the colour just makes me so happy. And it was a bit of a risk, and I'm so glad I took it because I am in love. It's not the softest in the world. I don't think that this will be regularly worn over very short sleeves, let me put it that way, because that little, like the ditch of your elbow, that's a little bit spiky on me. And I think that is the Wensleydale, not the mohair, because I have other jumpers that I've made held with this mohair, specifically the drops one, which I know people say is less soft than others, and it's a little bit prickly if you're warm, but this is like kind of scratchy on me, but I don't care because it's beautiful. I did last week, I was saying I wasn't sure, not last week, whenever it was, 3 weeks ago, I wasn't sure if I was going to do the ribbed button band as it is written in the pattern, which is what I ended up doing, or like figuring out how to get a double knit button band on it. I was playing a bit of yarn chicken because I had 3 skeins, 3 100-gram hanks, so I had to wind them up, like still hanked up, and then I had another bit that I had like started knitting into something and I hated it, so I stopped, and I did have to frog that in order to get the yarn, and it was very wiggly, windy, wovey, and I really wasn't enjoying the last little bit. I knit the end of one sleeve, you can't actually tell which one now, the end of one sleeve, I think this one, the ribbing is slightly less even, and the button band in it, and it just wasn't super fun, and the idea of doing a double knit button band in it was just a bit too much for me to handle. So I did the ribbed one, but actually the buttons that I've chosen are quite lightweight and I think it will be fine. And this cardigan is so warm that I think most of the time I will be wearing it open anyway, so I don't need that button band to have like super rigid structure to hold the garment together. Also, with most of Petite Knits patterns, I'm kind of somewhere between a small, well, most knitting patterns, to be fair, they're just all on like pretty much standardized clothing sizes, aren't they? I'm somewhere between a small and a medium. So for a cardigan I've sized up because I really don't want gaping buttons. I don't think that's a cute look. And also just makes you not want to wear the thing, right? So I went for the medium. So I've got plenty of like give in the fabric for the buttons. There's no kind of like pressure or tension on them, so that's fine. I basically knit it almost entirely to pattern, including the length. It is a really cropped cardigan, like I really like it. It sits on me really nicely, especially to wear with like high-waisted jeans or skirts, which is basically everything I own because that's the shape that suits my body. But if you are knitting this, it is a cardigan that on me, a 5'4" human being, knit to the length specified in the pattern, goes just past my natural waist, like a couple of inches past, like it's short. And I know it's short in the pictures, but I think it's hard to tell sometimes, isn't it? So I'm telling you, it's quite short. So if you're thinking about doing this and you prefer a slightly longer cardigan, you are going to need more yarn than the pattern tells you, because you are going to want to add like a good 3 or 4 inches to the body to make it more of like a hip-ish length cardigan. I would do the thing that everybody recommends, which is finding something you already own that you really like the length of and measuring that, rather than trying to measure your body, because unless you've got a very good measuring friend, I think it's much more accurate to measure a garment flat, because that's how you're measuring what you're making. I think you get a better result. So yeah, I knit this basically exactly to pattern. The only thing that I did differently was the sleeves. They have some decreases in, and I did, and you do X number of rows, you do a decrease, and I did like half the decreases, and I realised that the sleeve, if I carried on at the decrease rate that was specified in the pattern, I would have sleeves that came down to here. I think I had to go up half a needle size, so I did this on a 4.5mm needle, and I used slightly thicker yarn than the pattern asks for. So my stitch gauge is right, but my row gauge is off. So for the second half of both the sleeves, I just decreased slightly more frequently, and actually I didn't even really do the maths. I was just like, well, I'll do it every so-and-so rows instead of what I've been told to do for the next bit, and actually they came out the perfect length and I'm really pleased. And they have blocked a little longer, I think, just because there's no, like, it's all just totally even and flat. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, and the only other thing that I did differently was on the buttonholes. It is originally a, where's my buttonhole? Can you see it? My thumb. It's originally a 4-stitch buttonhole. I did a 3-stitch buttonhole because I had bought buttons and I knew they were slightly smaller than the ones that were specified in the pattern, and I didn't want the buttons to just be slipping out the buttonholes. I bought these beautiful, can you see them? Beautiful pearly buttons from a haberdashery shop in my town. I had also bought some sparkly ones, like I'm sure they're plastic, but you know, they're like faceted acrylic with a metal backing, or maybe they're glass, but I had bought some of those because that's the kind of buttons that are on the original garment made by Petite Knit, and they're very beautiful. And I put on my Instagram like, oh, which one should I use? And most people voted pearly, and you were right, but also someone pointed out that the other buttons would probably snag on the yarn, and actually when I laid them on the garment to take a picture, they did catch on the mohair, and that would drive me mad. They're also a lot heavier than these buttons, and I think they would pull on the ribbed button band. I think if I had been less lazy and had done the double knitting button band, they would have been fine in terms of pulling, but these worked out perfectly. I love how they sort of pick up the lighter mohair, and they're kind of like a bit fun and fancy, but they're not totally madly in your face. I'm very pleased with them, and they give it like a grandma chic kind of grandma core vibes. I don't think that's actually a thing, but maybe we should all make it a thing. Yes, I'm so happy with it. I can't wait for it to be just a bit cooler so I can wear it. I think this isn't ever really going to be like an inside kind of garment for me because I will be too warm, but I have visions of jeans and boots and some kind of white t-shirt, probably with long-ish sleeves because the brickle is real, and this and a cute bag and going for some kind of like outdoors moment. So yeah, that's my finished April cardigan. I think that I have said everything that I wanted to say. Yes, I have. I've just written it all down because I've got a brain like a sieve. So yeah, that's my finished object for the week, the only finished one, but considering that I basically made a cardigan in 3 weeks, I'm pretty happy with myself because it sometimes takes me a very long time to actually finish things. So that's my finished object. Works in progress. Which one shall I do first? I think I'll do that one. You'll see, like, the last few things that I have been working on have all been green, and now I feel like everything that I'm working on is blue. I promise I do wear other things, but for some reason, I don't know, does that happen to people? Like, I feel like really drawn to a specific colour for a while, and then I think because I'm really enjoying it in one space, I see it in other things and I'm like, yes, that's really nice. So the first whip that I will show you is a Storm Sweater Junior, also by Petite Knit. This is her most recent release, or I don't know, there's a cardigan as well, isn't there? But it's an all over textured jumper, and oh my god, I love it. I don't need it, but I really wanted to make it. And I said last episode, sorry, that I have lots of small humans in my life that are either about to exist or have existed for an anniversary amount of time. So this is for my friend's little girl who is going to be 1 in September, and she is so stinking cute and gorgeous, and I love her very, very much. And I made her some bits when she was born, and so it seemed like I should make her something for her first birthday. So I have done the entire body and neckline of the Storm Sweater Junior in the age 1 to 2. This looks massive, but I promise is actually almost the exact measurements of the pattern. And I'm not really that mad about it because it means that it will last. They can roll the sleeves up and she can have a semi-sweater dress for 8 months, and then this will definitely probably still fit her when she's 2 for a bit. And that's a good thing. I am using a Stylecraft yarn. I'm using Stylecraft Recreate DK. I think this is the colour Sky. Is it the colour Sky? Yes, 1946 Sky. It's a really beautiful, like, true sky blue with sort of almost like a tealy undertone. And then if I hold it up, can you see it's got some like fun flecks in it of like yellows, some darker blues, there's some sort of like reddy pinks. I wouldn't say it's enough to like truly call it a tweed, but I think it's really pretty. And this is one of their like eco yarns. I'm never sure how much to trust that sort of thing, but apparently it's all from recycled materials. So it's 40% wool, 30% acrylic, and the wool and acrylic are, as they tell you, made from recycled garments. So they've like, you know, reprocessed, made things. And then 30% polyester, which I think they said is made from plastic bottles. Is that right? Yes. 30% polyester, which is made from plastic bottles. So if that's all true, I mean, it's true, they can't lie to you, but I think it's one of those things that sounds like, oh my god, that's amazing, but actually maybe it's not really any different to anything else, but it makes me feel a little bit better. And I thought that this would be a lovely yarn for like toddler knits. It seems really hard wearing. It's machine washable. It's tumble dryable. Those are not real words, but you can tumble dry it. There we go. And it will be a little bit warm with the wool, but not really warm. It's not like, oh my gosh, so soft. Like, oh, I could just roll around and snuggle it, but it's not scratchy at all. I think it will be nice workhorsey kind of yarn, which to be honest is what you want for small children. I've had a lot of fun knitting this. It's nice to do something small and quick. I think, you know, I think I spent maybe a day on the yoke and a day on the body in terms of like total time. And it's fun. It's very like Moorish. You always want to get to the next bit. Once you're knitting in the round, it hurts my brain a lot less because you don't have to read the chart backwards. I did have to really think about that quite a bit, probably too much. But once you're in the round, it's plain sailing. I even did a proper sewn bind off on the bottom. I didn't do a, like, is it an Italian bind off where you do the double knitting first and then you do the sewn bit to get like that perfect fold over? I decided that a 1-year-old probably wasn't worth that. I love you, but no. So I just did a sewn bind off, but I still think that it looks really nice. It's lovely and stretchy. When this washes, it will stretch with the wash. And I've just got the sleeves to go, which I am tempted to try. No, I'm going to have to do them on Magic Loop. I was going to see if I could just like stretch the sleeve to go on like my smallest circular knitting needles, but I don't think that's very wise. I think my gauge will end up really funny. So Magic Loop it is, but I think they'll be very quick. I'm pretty sure it's basically just the pattern repeat from like here down to the bottom on the sleeves. Yeah, not really much more to say about that. Oh, I also did a folded and knitted down neckline for the first time. I've always done it where I've just knitted twice the length and then sewn it down, but I knitted it down this time, and actually you get a really nice like finished edge on the inside, and it's nice and stretchy, and I think it's quite a big neckline for a small person, and I think that the knitted togetherness will hold that neckline with some structure, and give the rest of the garment some structure, because that is, I suppose, the one I've not start again. That's probably the biggest difference between this yarn with the acrylic in versus the yarn that it's written for, which is Sandnes Garn Peer Gynt, which is 100% wool. This is probably a lot more flippity floppity. I've not used Peer Gynt before, but I've seen lots of pictures of the finished garment in this size, and it looks much stiffer than this is going to be. So those little moments of structure where you like knitting the neckband down and things, I think will be really helpful to keep this looking nice and crisp and not going all like sad and floopy. It'll do that a bit, it's got acrylic in it, but it'll give it its best chance of staying nice for as long as possible. So I'm really enjoying that, and I think, I'm not sure, but I have another small human whose birthday is in September, and she will be 2. And I'm quite tempted to knit her one as well in the next size up, because this first size jumper, so the size 1 to 2, age 1 to 2, will take, I've used 1 ball and a little bit of this. I've only got the sleeves to go. I think I'll probably have enough for a hat as well. So it's very cost effective, this yarn. I think it was like £6 a ball from the local haberdashery, which has beautiful buttons and some Stylecraft yarn. And I think the next size up would maybe need 3. And I'm really enjoying it, and I think it's a nice piece that has a kind of like, oh, you put loads of effort into it, what a beautiful hand knit jumper. It's not really something, doesn't really look like all the kind of kids knits that you can buy in like Zara or whatever, and it's not super expensive, and I enjoyed doing it. So I might do another one. I might find a different pattern to do for second toddler birthday, but that is a potential for me to do another one. Saves me buying another pattern, doesn't it? Oh, I feel like did I do anything? Did I say anything else? No. Sorry. Like I said, brain like a sieve today. The second whip that I want to talk about is step 2 in my new blue era. Moved on from green. She says, wearing the same foresty green that I've been knitting everything in. And that is the Wave jumper by Thea Vesterby, which is from Laine issue 17. And it is this beautiful jumper on the front cover in this like gorgeous, like true Barbie situation. I wish that I could knit it in these colours, but I would look like a sort of pale yellow mush. Pink is not a good colour on me. Especially those like true, like cool tone Barbie pinks. No, no, no. So, seeing as I had, you know, made a little purchase for the Storm sweater, Storm sweater for the Storm Sweater Junior, I thought, no, we are going to use our stash to do this. I also bought Laine magazine, which was like £20. You get a lot of patterns, but it's expensive. And so I am using 2 things from stash. The first is this cone of British 4-ply from Woolyknits in the colour Summer Storm, and that is my main colour. I'm holding that double to get a DK weight. And then the contrast colour that I'm using is a little bit of Sirdar Country Classic DK. This is a 50-50 wool acrylic blend, but it feels very woolly to me, and it's got nice amount of like bounce and stretch that you want from wool, whereas acrylic can just be quite like stiff. And I'm using that for the little, like where in the pattern, in the picture it's red, I'm using white, so I'm going to get a sort of a weirdly like nautical look out of it, which I didn't realise when I was thinking about it that it was called the Wave. I just thought that's a really nice pattern, and I have already done the whole of the back yoke. I've picked up the shoulders and I've started on the front, and it looks like a hot mess because it's at that stage. So that's the back there, so we've got one full lace repeat already, and then the front looks gnarly and horrid because it's just like I've just picked up and started knitting down, and I've got to knit flat for a bit before I get to doing some lace again. So I am enjoying this. I've not really done like a true lace pattern before. When I sort of like picked knitting back up again a few years ago, one of the things that I did is I just knit like some lace swatches from following some instructions on YouTube, and that helped me feel a lot more confident with knits and purls and tension, and I enjoyed doing it, but I haven't then made anything with lace in. So that's nice, and it's very Moorish, like everybody says, because you're always like, oh, I'll just do the next little bit, oh, I'll just get to here. This has also got stripes in it, so it's like a double whammy. Oh, I'll just do this bit and then I can get to that stripe, and then, oh, the stripes are fairly plain, like either all knits or pearls, so I'll do that. So it's gone quite quickly. I'm trying to combat my desire for my yarn to always match. So I feel weird about using like an expensive mohair with a less expensive base yarn, or using something that's 100% one kind of wool held with something that's like a bit of wool and a bit of cotton. So I'm trying to get over that, because I think that is limiting me in using up what I have. So this is step 1, is using something that's 100% wool with something that's 50-50. And I think they're going really well together, actually. I'm really pleased with how it's knitting up. This is also like a totally flat colour, like no variations, and obviously you can see on this, it's a really nice, like, almost like a greeny toned blue. It's got like a kind of tealy undertone. Is like very heathered, and because I'm holding 2 strands together, it's kind of like a double whammy. It's got a really nice halo as well. I don't know if you can see that. So yeah, as always, had to go up a needle size. I don't think of myself as a tight knitter. Like, I don't struggle to get my needle and my stitches, and I don't pull but always, my gauge is always tighter than the pattern. I always have to go up in needle size. Everything that I'm currently working on is on a size 4.5mm needle, which is a little bit problematic because I only have one 4.5mm needle, but that's a problem for future me, I think. So yeah, when I did a little swatch for this, the swatch, the odd thing that I found is that the swatch is just for your stockinette, not for the lace. So I'm not clear on how much the lace is going to grow. I would imagine quite a bit. Like if you look at it, it's very scrunchelled and it will very much benefit from a fairly vigorous block. So I don't know if it'll be like a block part way through kind of jobby, or more true to form on my part of just going, I think it's done now, and just stopping. So we'll see about that. And then I was watching something else. I was watching somebody else's podcast and they were using Woolyknits. Who was it? I can't remember. And they anyway, I'll try and remember who it is. They recommended washing it in a little bit of dish soap because it still has quite a lot of spinning oil on apparently, and that will help it really soften up. And so I did wash my swatch in a little bit of dish soap and it did make it a lot softer. So obviously you then have to rinse it out. It makes the whole blocking thing a little bit more involved. You don't just have to soak it in some wool wash for 40 minutes and then squeeze it out and lay it out to dry. You've got to like actually wash it but without felting it. But it did make it a lot softer, so I do think I'm going to do that when it's finished. The only thing was that I washed this little swatch in a bowl, and I could see that the dye had run a little bit, and obviously I have paired it with a white yarn. So I'm wondering if anybody has any ideas about how to stop that running into the white yarn. I've got colour catchers like for your washing machine. Can I just put one of those in the bowl when I block it? Does it work like that? I don't know. Tell me. Share with me your knowledge. So yeah, I think so. I think that will work, but let me know if you've got any ideas. The pattern's really well written. It has written instructions for the lace as well as a chart, which is nice because, like I mentioned with the storm sweater, reading patterns on the wrong side, reading a chart on the wrong side, my brain really struggles to flip the symbols. So while I'm knitting backwards and forwards, I've been using the written instructions and then just double checking that, like double sense checking them with the chart, because I think sometimes, you know, it's like do X number of blah blah blah. It's a little bit more complicated, isn't it, when it's written out. Then sometimes you just look at it and you're like, oh well, that's really obvious. So kind of sense checking it against the diagram, but mostly relying on the written out lace, which I think is very nice, especially for a pattern in a magazine where the space is limited, that they've bothered to, you know, take up like a whole column of text with some written out instructions when they could have just put the chart in, is really handy. The only thing that I didn't enjoy so much about this was how you start it, and that is, in my experience with drop shoulder garments, which admittedly is not like massive, but the ones that I have done where there's been short row shaping in the back, you've cast on your total number of stitches that you will eventually end up with, and then you've worked some short rows, so you do all your cast on in one go, whereas this gets you to cast on X number of stitches, knit a couple of rows, and then use a backward loop cast on to cast on some more stitches, knit back again, and then put some on the other end, knit back and forth, and then the same thing twice. So your back piece ends up with these like little steps in. And also what I subsequently discovered is picking up neat stitches from a backwards loop cast on, I found really difficult. So you can see I've got this really gnarly pickup with all these like little extra loops in, and I did that on the first side and then I managed to avoid it on the second one, but I still don't think it's a very neat pickup, and I think that's because the way the backward loop cast on is structured, it's just harder to put your needle in the right place to not get those little bumpy bits, unless I'm doing it really wrong, but I don't think I am. Whereas your kind of like standard long tail cast on, I find much easier to pick up from, because there's like a little gap and two, like your V over the top and a little gap, and in you go, and there it is. So I think if I was to do this again, I would work out the total number of stitches, cast those on, and then do some short rows with some either like German short row turns or like wrap and turns, whatever you want to do. I think I would do that rather than the casting on. It also means there's like a little step, and so when you're picking up from one bit to the next step, I had to like really make sure that I wasn't going to leave like a weird little gap or a wobbly bit. So I wasn't wildly thrilled about that, especially as there's like nothing that you can do to go back and fix it. Like, yes, could I rip out this whole front yoke and pick up again and try and avoid those loopy bits? Yes. Will I? Absolutely not. I don't care enough. It's like there's a little mistake in one bit of this lace. I don't care. I'm just gonna leave it. Nobody's gonna know except me. This little dodgy pickup bit, probably a bit more obvious, but I think once it's washed and everything's kind of like mushed together a little bit more, I don't care enough to rip out so much flat knit stockinette, because I don't like curling. But yeah, I'm excited to start to like get the front yoke to the length that it needs to be so that I can do the lace and join it in the round. The lace is pretty quick, because again, it's like, what do people call it, like popcorn knitting, like you just always want the next little bit. So once I got there, I don't think that took me very long, but doing the flat yoke is quite painful. But we shall get there soon enough. And I think that this is just going to look really, really good when it's all like stretched out and lovely. Dum dum dum. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased about that. I'm also pretty pleased about this. It's just beautiful. I'm really enjoying like flipping through it, and there's like at least 3 more patterns in here that at some point I'd like to have a go at. But I mean, just, it's so pretty. It makes you want to do knitting. And yeah, very pleased with how the pattern is written. I find it a little easier than some of the other magazine patterns that I've picked up in the past. A little bit clearer, a little bit more instructions. And it's nice. I want to show you, but I can't, because then you'll see the pattern. But it's, could I show you the front first page? Is there? Oh no, there's actual pattern on it. But it's really nicely formatted. There's enough space in between everything. The font's quite small, but it's not so small that I feel like I'm doing this. I mean, there's a reason that they publish so many things, and they've got it sorted out. So well done, Laine. You really needed the affirmation from me. I've made all the difference to you, but I'm really enjoying it, and it was a bit of an impulse purchase, but I'm very pleased with it. My final whip is my Cumulus tee. Still not finished, guys, but I have done the bind off on the body. I ended up, this is a Cumulus tee. Let me go back a little step. This is the Cumulus tee by Petite Knit. I promise this isn't a Petite Knit only account, but here we are. And I'm knitting this in the 3rd size in Knitting for Olives, pure silk in the colour olive. And I've been umming and ahhing over the bind off on this for too long. And also I did that thing where I had to make a decision about something, so I put it down because I couldn't make a decision, and then it got left put down. But I went back, I picked it up, I've done the bind off. The dilemma I was having is the bind off has some decreases in it. I was like, I don't want to end up in a thing that is a funny shape on my body. I don't want to do the decreases. Some people said do them, other people said don't. I went and looked at Ravelry. I crowdsourced opinions. Everyone was very kind to me about my flip-floppy can't make a decisionness. And what I ended up doing was using a slightly smaller needle. So I used a 2.75mm needle. When I think it tells you to use a 2.5, and I did no decreases. And I think I've not blocked it. So I think that that is going to be absolutely fine. It's rolling a little bit, but a block and it won't. I don't think it's flaring. I think that that looks fine. And picking it back up again has made me go, oh my god, this yarn is so nice, all over again. So that was lovely. I'm glad I picked it up and went, oh yes, I love this, rather than going, oh no, I want to go back to wool. It's a beautiful yarn. It's got a beautiful feel, a beautiful handle. I think it makes lovely fabric, and I'm just going to smash out the sleeves now. I'm literally going to go and pick them up when I finish recording this, so that I have no excuse. And then I will have a t-shirt to wear. And actually I think it will be a lovely staple autumn piece for me, because I'm a warm body when I'm at home, and I think that this will be delightful, and it goes with everything I own, so I'm happy about that. I'm happy that I got off my stuckness with it and just got on with it, and that's quite an achievement for me, because sometimes things can get stuck for a very, very long time, and it's such a shame, because I'm really enjoying a thing and then I'm just like weirdly paralysed by it for a while. So those are all my whips. And then the last little section is any kind of acquisitions or plans. You've seen this was an acquisition, and then at the same time as buying this, I also bought some Ulysse from the rerum natura, which I bought in a knitting shop in Brighton called Yarn and Knitting, or YAK. It's a very beautiful shop. It's got lots of lovely yarn in it. It's all kind of like a little bit more niche or expensive, however you want to think about it. But I really like them in there. I think it's a lovely shop. They're always very nice and very helpful. And I like to try and buy things in there when I can, especially when it's something that it's actually trickier for me to get somewhere else. Like if I'm in Brighton, I can just go. And I bought this with the express purpose. I bought it for a purpose, guys. I didn't just randomly buy it. For the express purpose of knitting a blouse number 2 from My Favourite Things Knitwear, which is one of her new designs, which is that it's very popular. They're everywhere at the moment. They're kind of like eyelet lace, garter ridgy, all over top jumper thing. The pattern is actually written for 100% cotton. It's not really very practical in my life. I wouldn't get that much use out of it, and I thought, could I do like a wool cotton blend? Oh, no. I was umming and ahhing over it, and then I remembered that last year I made an Ingrid slipover by Petite Knit in the like bigger version of this. So Ulysse is like a sport weight, they call it sport, it's very much like a DK sport weight yarn, and then they do Gilliat, I don't know, it's French, Gillat, in which is the same blend, the same spin, just in a like worsted Aran weight. And I did my Ingrid slipover in that, and it's a beautiful yarn. It's 100% merino, but it's not that like slippy soft kind of merino. It's like full and bouncy. I think, is this a woolen spun or a worsted spun? It's whichever one has got more air in it. So you get a lot of meterage for your weight, which is good because it's not inexpensive. And it means you end up with a really nice, like defined, like texturally defined knit. My Ingrid slipover, I have abused that garment. I am not kind to my knits. I'm not, don't baby them. I'm not precious with them. I'll just wear them. I'll wear them under things, over things, with bags, you know, I'll slob about on the sofa in them. Like there's no respecting the hard work that I've put in, and it still looks beautiful. It hasn't really pilled at all. It has got some cat hair stuck to it, but like literally everything I own. And it still looks really nice. All the texture on it is still really crisp and clear. I'm really pleased with it. And so I thought, this jumper is very textured. And actually, it might look really nice in this yarn. And I've wanted to use this for a while as well, because I enjoyed the big sister version so much. And so I did a little swatch, a switchy swatch. I haven't blocked this yet, but I'm imagining it's going to do that when I block it. And so you can see it's like really nice and textured. And actually I was thinking, if it wasn't 100% cotton, I've looked at some of the pictures, it's really, the 100% cotton ones on some of the pictures are really pulling on the shoulders and are kind of distorting at the top. And this won't do that, but it will still have like a nice sort of like bouncy, swishy feel. And it also makes it like a better, makes the garment for me and my wardrobe and my needs a better like transition piece. All the little holes mean that it'll be a little bit more breathable than like a really densely knit jumper, but it will still be warm. So for that like autumn where you need to wear a jumper but you don't necessarily want to put a coat on over the top, you just want to be able to wear like a t-shirt and a jumper over it, I think this might be the one. So I did a little swatch, but I need the same size needle for this as I do for this and this, so I'm not allowed to cast that one on until one of those two is finished, because we've got to control ourselves somehow. But I'm really excited about it. This colour, by the way, is Cell or Salt, and it's just a really nice like warm white. It's not quite a cream to me, it's more like a white colour. And I think, again, a real classic. I again realise that it's some ways quite similar to this, but I think that's what happens sometimes, isn't it? You enjoy this, you enjoy a thing, so you do it more than once. But I am really pleased with this swatch. I'm gonna give it a proper block, including pinning it out, which I don't normally do because I don't really wash my garments like that, but I think this will need it. And see what my row gauge is like, because my stitch gauge is fine but my row gauge is still really wonky, but I think that's because it needs to pull out a lot. And I would absolutely, like, I've not used this one, but I would 100% recommend the Gilliatt for like most things. It's really like, it's not scratchy at all. Like I said, it's not that like silky merino feeling that you get with like a superwash merino, but it's not itchy at all, and it has held up so well, especially for a merino yarn where the, you know, the fibre length is shorter and it more pit, etc. It really hasn't. It still looks beautiful. So strong recommend for this guy's big sister. And I mean, this, I can tell this is going to be really nice as well, but I can't use my actual experience to tell you that, just my hunch. An educated hunch. So I think those are all my whips that I've actually actively worked on. There are many other things floating around that one day I will get back to, but those are the things that are like actually actively happening in my world. Those are the things that I've purchased. That yarn, not inexpensive. I think it's £9 in YAK. It's £9 a ball, £8.95, something like that. So not cheap, but also not hugely expensive. And what you get 185 meters for 50 grams, so a decent amount of yardage. And again, they call it a sport, but it knits like a DK. If you hold it next to a DK yarn, you'll see they're basically the same size, and it's got a lovely spring. I'm going to stop talking about it now because what else do you need to know? So yeah, that's my knitting. And then in terms of what I've been watching while I've been doing all this knitting, I finally finished Criminal Minds, guys. Like, can I move on now? Can I stop watching a drama about serial killers? Please, Lord. Like, I think my brain needs a cleanse. So much darkness, so little time. So I finally finished that. So I'm looking for a new adventure, like mindless TV knitting wise. I did, the last few days, I've just had the radio on, which has been really nice. Like just a bit of background hum with some nice music every now and then. I'm not really a radio person, but my dad came round because he was having his car serviced. I think it was having its MOT. I don't know. I don't have a car, so car things are a mystery. Something was happening to his car and he couldn't use the car, so he came and sat in my flat and kept my cat company for a bit, and he left the TV on a radio station, so when I turned it on, it was on Radio 3, and actually it was lovely. It reminded me of living at home with my parents because they always have it on, so it's been quite comforting. And you know, who doesn't love a spot of classical music when knitting to improve their mind, alongside all of the murder. And then I haven't really been listening to any audiobooks at the moment. I whipped out, what was it? It's one of the Throne of Glass books, because I was doing the lace chart and I needed something so that I wasn't like too in my head, but it couldn't be anything that I actually had to listen to or concentrate on, because I actually had to think about what I was doing. So I've had one of those on in the background, but I've listened to all of those and read them many years ago. Like big epic YA fantasy series, lots of fun. Everybody falls in love with everybody else. It's like very epic. I think there are 6 books. They get progressively longer, as many YA fantasy series do once the publishers realise that people are buying them, so they don't have to edit them quite so viciously to get people to buy them. And I really enjoy it. I enjoy a bit of Sarah J Maas. I've said it, guys. No shame. And so I stuck one of those on while I was actually having to concentrate, but I wouldn't necessarily say that's like what I've been listening to. That's kind of it. I just need to find some new things to occupy my mad brain. And yeah, that's my knitting. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching for the first time, for coming back, for hanging out with me, for like writing me a comment, for sending me a message on Instagram, for like all of it is kind of mind-blowing, really overwhelming. I'm trying to be good about replying to people, but I definitely got thwacked by work the other week and just didn't really have the brain space, hence this podcast being a little bit later than the others, but that's life. I don't work a regular schedule, I don't work the same days every week, so this isn't always going to be able to go out at the same time. But I'm very grateful for everybody, and I am really enjoying doing this, and I'm very proud of myself for sticking to it and having some consistency and getting to share this with all of you. It's a real privilege, and I'm not blind or ignorant to that, and I just wanted to say a little thank you at the end. I find these really gushy and hard to watch sometimes because I'm somewhat emotionally stunted at times, so I thought I'd stick it at the end so that people who are like me can skip it if they like. So thank you so much. I hope to see you again in the future. Please, if you've got any thoughts about washing wool that runs, please tell me, because I honestly don't really know what to do. And yeah, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.